Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back, and now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's a new month, new us. Today and this month, we're going to be talking about all things your vote, your choice. So we're going to be talking a lot about what your vote means this coming election season, which we're already kind of in already. I think mail-in ballots are going out really soon. So I just want to encourage you all to use your voice. This is one of the most important things that you can do this year is to vote. And there are a lot of reasons for it. And I'm going to get into a bunch of them on the podcast this month. First up, we have the amazing Alex Jamieson. And Alex is an artist, a coach, and the brilliant mind behind the abortion trading cards and the fascism tarot deck. And today we are talking all things reproductive healthcare and a bunch of all sorts of other things as well. She has an incredible movement on Instagram where she calls out church leaders and Republicans doing dirty things and shitty things. And she uses the hashtags, hashtag not a drag queen and hashtag not a trans person. And we're going to talk about all sorts of the other things that are looming for the 2024 election and Project 2025. What are some of the real world fallouts when abortion rights are restricted, and how Project 2025 could remove many of our rights, dismantle the Department of Education, and all sorts of other things. And no-fault divorce. We're going to do a whole episode on no-fault divorce with Erin Levine in a couple weeks. But for now, stay tuned. We have got Alex Jamieson with your reproductive freedom and your vote, your choice. Alex, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us all things women's reproductive health, abortion, access, women's rights, all of it, all of it.
Yeah, Kate, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you about this.
As I was preparing for this conversation, I was like, why do we have to have this conversation? It's so ridiculous that we have to have this conversation, but here we are and we have to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Why do we matter?
Why do we have to be full human beings with rights? Both of my grandmothers and my mom are all rolling over in their graves
100%
right now. They would be as outraged and as active as I am currently about it.
Right.
And it's shocking. You know, when I was born in 1975, Roe was a brand new baby piece of law. Yeah.
Here's her necklace. I'm wearing my 1973 necklace. For those people who can't see me, I'm proudly displaying my 1973 necklace.
Yeah. And, you know, my grandmother could not get a credit card without a male family member. She couldn't buy a house. She couldn't do a lot of things when she divorced my alcoholic grandfather in the late 60s. I mean, she was a warrior with two young boys. And the fact that she did that, divorcing the town doctor and striking out on her own because it was better for her and her sons to leave than it was to stay. Mm-hmm. And the challenges that she faced at that time. Kate, can you even still believe that we somehow lived in this magical little 40, 50-year window where we had all these rights?
Right.
We just
Right.
had
We
all
had,
the rights and
we
access.
just, and we took them for, we took them for granted. I was born before Roe, but what did I know? I was born in 71. So I wasn't exactly conscious, right? But you and I were both raised with the awareness that it was just rights were just ours to have. It never occurred to me that this would ever be taken away, even until the day it did.
It did occur to me because my mom was super hardcore feminist hippie. Like I was raised on the back seat of her bicycle, riding around, handing out pamphlets to people.
Yeah, same. But same. But I still didn't think it was a thing. I don't know.
And she was, my parents were both like real, like be a good citizen kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
And my college, like extracurricular activity was starting a zine with my friends, because that's what you did in the 90s. You started a zine.
Right.
And I went around our college town. I went to University of Oregon, and I was like, you know what? There are 4 centers in Eugene, Oregon that advertise free pregnancy tests. And I know at least 2 of them are radical right front group. Now we would call them crisis pregnancy centers. And I went to all of them. So I was 20, 19. I went to all of them and said, hey, I think I might be pregnant, to see what the experience was like at each clinic.
Good for you. Amazing.
And there was only one in town that was like the feminist women's health clinic that was like, no judgment, bare bones facts. No, you're not pregnant. But if you had been, do you need birth control? All of the other centers, and this again was back in the 90s, they would show you pictures of babies and like hand you a plastic fetus and like do all this stuff, tell you that your boyfriend's going to break up with you, or you'll never be able to have children if you get an abortion at this age.
Oh, wow. Lies.
So at that young age, I was like, oh my gosh, the forces are already out there.
In our youth, right, there were a lot of bombings of abortion clinics. Certainly, you could never go to a Planned Parenthood without crossing a picket line. I mean, it was a really big thing. And so here we are. Roe was overturned, and we now have fewer rights than our parents and our grandparents did. And the thing to me that's so shocking is that, look, it's not just Roe, right? It's not just Roe. That's the beginning.
That's the beginning.
They want to overturn no-fault divorce. So, if they get their way, it's going to be harder for them to do that, I think, than this. But it's what they want. It starts with the states, right? Before it becomes federal.
And look what's happening this week in Missouri, in Florida. The state attorneys general in those states are saying, no, actually that, pro-choice ballot that is on deck to be voted on by the public, that activists have gotten tens, if not hundreds of thousands of signatures to put this up, to enshrine it in our state constitution. No, we don't like it. Like, we're not actually going to let you do this. So when the right says we want to kick it back to the states, that's BS. Do not believe them. Look at what they do, not what they say. They are absolutely they are tearing down every democratic venue to enshrine abortion in the states as well. So it's not just a national issue.
Right. They're saying that they want to kick it back to the states. And then when it does get kicked to the states, then they employ all of their obstructionist tools, machinations, in order to actually stop that too.
There's an amazing book called The Turnaway Study, and it's kind of a meta study, and they go out and they interview tons of women who, for whatever reasons, because of stricter abortion limits in different states, they interview women who couldn't get an abortion, sought out an abortion. And this was before Roe was overturned.
Yeah.
They sought it out, they couldn't get it. And what impact did that have on their life? It had massive impacts on women's lives. Mood issues, financial issues, relationship issues, right? When we talk about no-fault divorce and we talk about abortion, when that overturned, I immediately said to my husband, more women are going to be murdered by their partners.
100%.
when abortion isn't legal, because partner violence happens when there's an unwanted pregnancy and a man doesn't want to deal with it. He will literally murder his pregnant partner. And that's the number one cause of death for pregnant people in America. It's partner violence.
Yeah.
I don't love to scare people. I'm not, but I'm so outraged.
Listen, this is the reality. It is
Yeah.
scary. It is a terrifying time. And listen, this is why I'm doing this series on the show this month, because we have to know the facts and we have to know how scary it is. And we have to understand that, this isn't about other people. This isn't about other women. This isn't about, right, access to abortion and women's reproductive health care matters to everyone of any social demographic, any economic demographic, all of it.
Yeah.
But lack of access actually can impact those more marginalized far, far worse. And as you said, as a good citizen, like that should matter to all of us. Because we have to, right, this is like what it is to be a citizen. It is to protect the rights of the most marginalized among us. And if we don't, who are we as a people?
Who are we? What do we really stand for? I have an old friend who is probably my most conservative close friend. And she has been incredibly successful in corporate America. And she's very smart. And she was upset about this current election because she's like, I'm an economics person. I'm looking at the debt. I'm looking at the economy. And I don't want to be a single issue voter, but this is forcing me to be a single issue voter because I care about abortion rights. And I'm like, good. I'm glad that this matters so much to you, that you're going to vote for a candidate that you wouldn't normally be inclined to vote for. I said, but my friend, have you thought about what happens to the economy when more than half the population doesn't have control over when they have children? And you could see her brain just went, like she glitched. It's like she hadn't thought about that. And she actually cares about this. I'm like, this is an economic issue too.
Well, of course it is, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, of course it is. Who do you think has more welfare, welfare programs, whatever, social structure, whatever we want to call them, right? Who do you think consumes more of that, right? These are women who are raising children on their own because, the dads can opt out. It can't work because they can't afford daycare and going to work because that doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up, right? And so, yes, of course, there's a massive economic impact. Of course there is.
It's so wild to me, but yes, but it is so shocking. Here's my hope. My hope is that the forces of MAGA, the forces of the right have gotten too greedy too quickly and they've pushed it too far. Project 2025 is rightfully freaking people out.
Right.
They're like, wait, they're not just going after abortion. They're going after no-fault divorce. They're going after IVF. They're going after contraception. Like none of these Republican senators who are up for re-election voted to protect access to contraception.
That's right. That's right. Let's be clear that this was actually up for a vote recently, and Republicans voted against a woman's right to have access to contraception. So they want us pregnant. They want us to have babies, carry babies to term, by the way, whether they're viable or not. Then once we have them, they actually also don't want to give us any social safety nets. So, like, what do they want?
Yeah.
Power and control.
They want power and control. Same old, same old. Tale as old as time.
Tale as old as time. Tale as old as time. I want to add, so we were talking about how restricting access to abortion sort of it does disproportionately affect women's economic security, education, and our overall well-being.
Yeah.
I would love to talk a little bit more about that, especially our overall well-being. as you were saying, like it can destroy us.
Yeah. So my grandmother, who I mentioned before, she had 5 kids, and she didn't necessarily want 5 kids.
Mhm.
Now she's glad she had,
Yeah, right. She doesn't regret her children. Right.
Right.
Yes.
She doesn't
Yeah.
regret them. But she's like, yeah, I wish I had had more family planning options.
Mhm.
But it was the 50s and 60s. Didn't have those options. She had a lot of mental health challenges because of the stress of being married to an abusive alcoholic, having 5 kids, not being able to have financial independence, not being able to like leaving was so challenging. She was on lithium. She got electroshock therapy. Now I know that electroshock therapy and lithium are actually very helpful to certain people, but they are extreme measures.
And also the way that they were administered in the 50s and 60s is very different from the way the levels, the doses at which they're administered now.
And we know that we have such amazingly robust mental health services in America that, we just have an infrastructure to support all these people who don't want all these children. Sorry.
And guns.
Too much.
And guns. No, not at all. We're going to take a quick break and on the other side of the break, I want to actually talk about our mental health, our lack of mental health care in the United States of America. We'll be right back. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about mental health. Oh, they're all interconnected. We just had yet another school shooting and in Georgia. And in case you were not tracking which one I'm talking about, the thing that I found so deeply upsetting about this particular case, not this case, sorry. You see how this goes?
Hard to keep them straight.
Oh my God. Well, in this case and in the another one, right? Kids begging for mental health help. Kids begging, please. I'm going to shoot up a school if you don't fucking get me help. And parents responding by giving them guns. So there's that. There was another case that I was reading about. I think it was in the Washington Post recently about a kid who had become this online incredible cyber bully and in Discord and with child pornography, all sorts of stuff. He was but his father had taken him to so many places trying to get him help. His father had begged all of the systems, please help my son. There's something wrong with him. And he called the crisis center and they were like, well, we can get him an appointment in 3 months. So when Republicans say it's the mental health, you know what? Fine. We're gonna like, let's just take the argument off the table, whether it's the mental health or the guns. You're still not funding or enabling support for the thing that you say is the problem.
No. Yeah. That's their same old tired playbook. They get elected, they wreck stuff, and then they point at the stuff they wrecked and go, see, it doesn't work. We should defund it more. Like we don't, right? That's what they do. They don't know how to fix anything. They only know how to tear stuff down. That's so right. Sorry. People must think I hate Republicans. It's really not true. But what I love more than a two-party political system is the health and well-being of our children, the health and well-being of all of our children.
Yeah.
I went to a Moms for Liberty, or as I like to call them, Moms for Bigotry, is trying to worm their way into the New York City public school system. And I went to their town hall, and I have never been in the room with people who, with such smiles on their faces, hate gay and trans kids so much while saying, no, we're not homophobic, we're not transphobic. Right. It's all about parental rights. And so when we're talking about these things, right, the father who gives his kid an AR-15 because he's getting bullied, and then the kid can't get any mental health support and shoots up the school, I cannot help but think they really look at their children as property.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. As that kid is mine, and that kid is a reflection of me in the world. And if that kid isn't showing up the way I think they should behave, because then it will reflect badly on me, then that kid is worthless. I need to beat sense into them Or, God forbid, their kid is gay or trans, they kick them out of the house, right? And trans kids are more likely to be kicked out of the house, end up on the streets because their parents won't support them, or
Right.
be in such a mental health spiral because they're not accepted and loved that they end up ending their own lives.
And this is the exact same mentality that governs all systems of abuse and power, right? It's the I own you, and
Yeah.
and I control you, and if you don't comply, then you're worthless, and I want nothing to do with you, which is exactly how they view women and our bodies.
Yeah.
And it's the abuser's playbook.
Yeah,
Right?
it's this coercive control that you talk
Mm-hmm.
about.
Mm-hmm.
It's why cults are so popular in America.
Right?
The cult psychology, the cult tactics, it's really all part and parcel.
This is the thing that really boggles my mind. And I have friends who are like, I don't know why you're so surprised by this. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like an eternal idealist, optimist. Like, I don't know. But why are so many people attracted to this? Why are so many people in favor of this?
I'm going to say something that I think will upset some people. I think it's religion's fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This country has been crafted in a way, to be very strict Christian methodologies and systems. And it is a very demanding God. It
Right.
is total obedience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially in the white Christo-fascist movement that we're seeing has such a growth right now. The men in the church, it looks to me like they believe they are God on earth and they should have dominion over their families, over their children.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it really is.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
also a really interesting aspect with the prosperity gospel that runs through America. And that's where Trump comes from. Trump was raised in a prosperity gospel church, which is, think and grow rich.
Right.
You
Yes.
just say something as many times as possible. It will be true.
Mm-hmm. The secret.
If you're
Yes.
rich, that means you're a good person.
Yes.
So they're really interwoven.
It's so true. And also, I just want to clarify. I do want to clarify because I think we're on the same page on this, is that it's not Christianity that is the problem. It is this patriarchal interpretation of Christianity and scripture that actually completely, like, if you read the Bible, Jesus is not that. He's like the OG social justice warrior, right? Like, how has worshiping him turned into this?
Yeah,
It's like
Jesus was a
insanity to
long-haired
me.
radical socialist Jew. Come on.
Right. He was like a fucking hippie.
Yeah.
What is happening? Insanity. It's insane to me. It makes no sense. So, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's the Christian right and the evangelical sort of, twisting of the word.
Well, another thing that I think was just a lucky aspect of my childhood, being raised by these hippie teachers, but also the school that I went to, I grew up in kind of a haven of cult psychology outside of Portland, Oregon in the 70s and 80s. And we had Cult Awareness Week when we were high schools.
Stop it.
We were seniors in high school.
Wow.
It was the same time we were reading 1984 and Brave New World and Animal Farm.
But we can't read those anymore, honey.
No,
those are not allowed anymore. We're not allowed to read those.
No.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No cult awareness now.
But we watched this movie, which you can still watch on YouTube for free. It's called Stairway to Heaven. And it's about a young man who goes off to college and gets indoctrinated into a cult. And it wasn't until years later, I was like, oh, why did we have Cult Awareness Week? Like, I'm so glad we did.
Uh-huh.
And I realized when I watched that documentary, Wild Wild Country, which was about the Rajneeshis and Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, and that was in Portland, Oregon.
Yep,
that's a hotel. Oh, he rebranded himself as Osho. So if you ever see an Osho quote out there, nope, that's a cult leader.
Oh, wow. I'm not sure I knew that, but that documentary, wow. But that documentary, one of the things that it did was in the beginning of that show, you're like, fuck yeah, I want to join that. That's amazing. They're having so much fun. They're dancing naked in caves. Like, how great is this? There's all this freedom and expression and intimacy and right.
Yeah, love and acceptance. That's the fun outer layer. That's what all cults have, a fun outer layer.
Yeah. Jim Jones had that. Yeah. Right. I mean, he started out as being like the first inclusive church.
Yep.
Right. I mean, you do amazing things over on your Instagram. Speaking of sort of church and indoctrination, you have a series that you do, hashtag not a drag queen and hashtag not a trans person, in which you out the hypocrisy of these people, right? Because these cult leaders, these church leaders, whoever, right? So often they're the ones who get arrested for, possession of child pornography, for sex trafficking, for whatever, what have you.
Yeah. Yeah. So almost every week, I did have to take a couple weeks off because honestly, like researching these stories really gets to me. It's really hard. Even just reading the headline and the basic, like the barest minimum facts to write these stories is really gut-wrenching. But almost every week I do a quick lineup. It's less than a minute long of here's another cop who was caught abusing a child, not a drag queen. Here's another clergy person caught usually abusing a child. It's a lot of child abuse. It's a lot of child sexual material that they find, etc. And it's just to point out, look, I know any adult can do harm. I know that. I'm not saying that drag queens or trans people are not capable of doing harm. However, there are currently over 300 laws across the United States that have already been passed or are up for a vote now to suppress or erase trans people and drag queens because of the children. Yes. Like, well, okay, if 99% of the news stories, and these are local affiliates, by the way, a lot of Fox News sourcing. A lot of my sources come from local Fox affiliates. So I am not just cherry picking here.
That's right.
A lot of these stories are cops, clergy, and conservatives. But it's a distraction technique. Nope, we're going to go after trans people and drag queens when actually it's the people in power. It's the cops, the clergy, and a lot of conservative politicians who are actually caught for these crimes.
That's right. Oh my gosh. We're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk more specifically about this election and a little more about Project 2025. Okay, we're back. We were talking about, before the break, we were talking about hypocrisy, these power and control dynamics that are so spearheaded by these religious zealots, but they're also really deeply embedded in our political systems. And we have, especially the Heritage Foundation, who did us a service by writing out Project 2025, since Donald Trump wasn't actually going to write out any policies. We have Project 2025, which he swears he's not affiliated with. Let's talk about some of the other aspects of Project 2025. I mean, most of this is about, it's amazing, most of this is about taking away rights from people, right? There's not a lot of giving of rights. There's not a lot of opening doors, right? It's really a litany of removal of rights.
Yeah, they will gut the national service. All the people who work in the national government, everything from the DMV to the Parks Administration they want to eliminate the Department of Education. Just take that in for a moment. What do you think will happen? That's how extreme this is. It is dystopia on day one.
So what are the ramifications of that? Like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Removing the Department of Education. Like, what does that mean?
So my parents are all public school educators, and I'm incredibly proud of them. And I have seen over the last 50 years the amount of hard work and love that they put into that work.
Yeah.
They care.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do they care, they paid for people's lunches, school supplies, clothing. Teachers are often the last line of defense, helping kids not slip through the cracks. What about the school lunch program,
Mm-hmm.
right? We've seen states get rid of school lunch programs. God love Tim Walz and him saying, you know what? Everybody gets breakfast, everybody gets lunch.
That's right. That's
They
right.
do that- They do that here in New York City too. It's like summer lunches are on, like you can go in as a student every day in the summer and get fed because your parents can't afford to feed you.
Right.
What will happen to those kids if they don't have the schools to help them? It will be a shock to our system that we can't even fathom.
Do you feel like, because every time, like, again, as you said, they come in and they destroy things. And then when it's broken, they point to it and be like, and they're like, look, nothing works. And it's like, but you just stomped on that. Like, what are you talking? It was working. And so this is what I feel like, and back to eliminating the Department of Education, I'm a huge believer that we're in this mess because of the cuts to education funding that have been systematic since 1968 or whatever it was. I think it was 68. And so, like, we now have this populace that is completely malleable and controlled because they've not been taught critical thinking. They've not been educated in any way. And so when it gets worse and things are broken, like, what are people going to think? They're not going to be educated. And I'm not going to say they're not smart enough, but they're not educated enough, right? Because
Well, also to go back to the late 60s when they started to dismantle and defund the education system, it was because of racism. They didn't want to integrate the schools. They wanted to pull their white students out and go to the suburbs, which a lot of them did, right? White flight in the late 60s, early 70s, and that defunded those local inner city school systems. And so a lot of it really goes back to racism. Like, we don't like the federal government because a lot of Black and brown people work there. We don't like the public education system because it's supporting the Black and brown people that we have tried so hard to suppress. Classism, racism, sexism. Those three things are, man, we got some work to do, America.
We got so much work to do. We have so much work to do. We came here to talk about women's reproductive rights, but here we are. But it's all connected. It's all connected. So listen, I hope you're listening, not just because if you're like walking down the street right now and you're fist pumping, then like, I love you and I'm so glad you're here. But if you're listening to this and you're like, that's not my belief system, or this goes against my values, or I am part of a church that I really strongly value and it feels conflicting. I feel conflicted. What can we say right now to help women understand the importance of this moment?
I made something called the abortion trading cards.
They're amazing and beautiful.
The tongue-in-cheek title, but it's a set of, it's like an old deck of playing cards that you discover 50 years in the future in your grandmother's chest up in the attic. And it's a deck of cards that have been hand painted and collaged and altered. And on the back of each card is reproductive health information. There's anatomy. There's abortifacient herbs that have been used for hundreds, thousands of years by midwives and wise women around the world to help women have some control over their reproductive health and whether or not they want to have a child at this moment. It also has, it has a whole bunch of, it has abortion history as well. For instance, there's Benjamin Franklin's abortion recipe that he published in the 1730s.
No.
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know
Benjamin Franklin wrote in the most popular book that was printed in the colonies at the time an abortion recipe using different herbs that were well known to teach people proper proportions, like how to do the math of proportions of these different herbs, because it wasn't a problem. The founding fathers didn't care. It wasn't something that people cared about. It was so out in the open. It only became a divisive issue in the last 40 to 50 years in America. I really encourage people, like, take a look at the abortion trading cards. Look at what the future will be. It will, like, when we say we're not going back, we don't want to go back to people desperate enough to try herbs to end a pregnancy because it might kill her.
Right.
And as we know, most people seeking an abortion are already mothers. Most people seeking an abortion already have children, and they don't want or can't afford or can't handle another child. And what we don't want is mothers dying, taking a bunch of herbs, or injuring themselves, like causing more drama and trauma to the family. So abortion's not going to go away. It's just going to get harder and less safe.
The way that it was before Roe. Like, women were getting abortions before Roe, and they were dying.
Yes.
We always come back to, well, the founding fathers, and their intentions and the Constitution and all of, right? It's like, oh no, the founding fathers were actually writing recipes for abortions.
Yes.
So what do you think about that?
Yes.
Right? Like, actually, they were doing it, actually. And probably a lot because they were impregnating slaves. And
thank you. That was the next sentence out of my mouth. They were either writing abortion recipes or keeping young women against their will because they were Black and they could own them. Also, classism, sexism, racism entwined.
Ta-da! Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right. So this is why this matters, right? This is why this matters. And frankly, I think this is why it's not just okay, but I think important for this, if this is your single issue to vote on, it should be. It should be. And if you're a mother of a daughter, holy shit, right? Because this is the legacy. This is what we're leaving our children. You and I have boys, right? And if my son were to get someone pregnant who wanted to have an abortion, I would want to make sure that that was possible for them for all the reasons. But this is what we're leaving our daughters.
It was so interesting. So my son's 17, his girlfriend, we all went out to dinner last night. And I was talking with them about the cards because they see it. They see my Instagram sometimes. And my son said, "Oh, Mom, one of my friends sent me one of your Instagram reels again, saying, 'Is this your mom?'" And he's like, proud of it now.
Yeah.
But a few years ago, I've been this out and loud political my whole life. He's so used to this at this point.
Yeah.
But he's like, "Well, Mom, I don't think people should kill babies." And I was like, you know what? I agree. They shouldn't. In my opinion, and in the opinion of a vast majority, 99% of OBGYNs, it is not a baby.
That's right.
And I showed him a picture. And here's the other interesting thing is that, again, the right, the conservative movement has kind of dominated the visual story of abortion for a very long time. They hold up posters.
Yep.
It's a baby.
In a meat grinder. I mean, I grew up walking down the streets of New York City and they were like, had a baby in a meat grinder. It was horrifying and traumatizing.
That does not happen. That has never happened. That's infanticide.
Yeah.
That is not abortion. And so I showed him a picture. I said, here's a picture of an actual Petri dish. And I said, look at what that is. And he's like, is that a sneeze? And I said, like, yeah, it just looks like a cloudy little bit of a sneeze on a slide. I was like, that's what most abortions look like. It's a little cloud of cells, and that's it. And that's if women had access, that's as simple and as safe as it would be. And when we put limits on it, it gets more dangerous for everyone. And I said, look, anyone who's having an abortion after this stage, most people want that baby so badly. They have names, they have decorated the nursery. This is not an easy decision for like people later on in a pregnancy. This is life or death now. It's her life that's on the line. Something horrible has happened. Doesn't she deserve to make that choice with her partner or for her family? And I just remember the look in his face like, oh, yeah. Like that visual story, even a kid growing up with a super feminist artist hippie mom, he had absorbed that messaging.
Right.
Which
Yes,
was
of course.
so interesting.
Well, listen, when they say, they're killing babies after birth, it's like, what? They're doing what?
When? Where? Show me
Show me.
any instance, example, news story, documentation. When has that
That's
happened?
right. That's right. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Nor are we transitioning children at school. You're not
No.
sending your child to school and they're coming home a different gender. That's not happening.
No, we're not.
I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but like
It's
preposterous. It's preposterous. It's preposterous. So this matters. This matters. And if it is your single issue, right? If you really do believe that this matters, and I do urge people to do, of course, we can't use this word anymore. Do your research, but like actually do some research, right? Where can people learn about what this really is and what it really means if they're really curious and interested in shifting?
Yeah, so there's a couple of sources. One I mentioned already, and that's the Turnaway study. Very well documented. They've done a ton of press. Like this is a very sober look at what happens to women who are turned away and cannot get the abortion care that they've been seeking. And the other is, so the abortion trading cards are actually a fundraiser. We're raising money for the Brigid Alliance, BRIGID, the Brigid Alliance, which was named after Saint Brigid, the first Irish saint who her miracle was performing an abortion.
Oh my God.
Patron saint of abortions.
Stop it. Catholics? Wait, stop.
Yes.
Hold the presses.
Yes.
The Catholics have a patron saint of abortion.
And most of them don't even know it. I was in Ireland for a month last year, and the family I was staying with in Galway was like, oh, it's St. Bridget's Day. It's now a bank holiday. I was like, oh, did you know that St. Bridget is the patron saint of abortions? And there was like record scratch. What?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Right?
The irony is just like, here it is. Oh my God.
No, the Brigid Alliance is one of the few nonprofits where they help people travel from banned states to get abortion care in a safe place. And there's very few clinics left in the country who do a later term abortion. And again, they're only getting it at that point because that woman's life is at stake.
That's right.
And it's expensive. It costs thousands of dollars. And most Americans can't get their hands on $2,000 if there's a huge emergency in their family. They cannot get their hands. They don't have the credit. They don't have the cash.
Yep.
So between childcare, like real legit childcare, transportation, flights, hotels, getting the services, and then the aftercare, it's many thousands of dollars. Most people don't have that money. So the Brigid Alliance pays for everything.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so your trading cards are a fundraiser to support the Brigid Alliance.
Yes.
So everybody go and get some trading cards.
You can get them on Amazon now. It's great.
You can get them on Amazon. This is amazing. And we'll put all the links in the show notes. Alex, I feel like there's so much in this, as you said, before we hit record, that we were going to talk for like 2 hours, and we totally could. But there's so much in this. And I just really, really, really am so grateful for you sharing your wisdom on all of this with my audience. where can everybody find you and follow you and learn more about all that you do, which is there's so, by the way, Alex does so much that this is literally like a teeny tiny portion of all that you do. So
I would say Instagram is a great place. It's
yes, it is
at Delicious Alex. You'll see my little wipe away writing painting videos there.
Yeah.
And then check out the abortion trading cards.
Yeah. Everything on Alex's Instagram is brilliant and amazing and also entertaining to watch. So it's not just like, oh God, it's hard information. It's like hard information delivered in artistic, interesting ways. So
we call that edutainment.
Edutainment. I love it. I love it. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you. I appreciate the show. I appreciate your passion and focus on this. Like, we need you. Thank you for standing up for this and for all the people who come to you for support. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.